Practice management, crossover CPT, HCPC, and ICD codes. At times, different payers may have different requirements for coding in certain scenarios, such as certain labs or physical exams. For example, Medicare or Medicaid may want one CPT or HCPC code, whereas a PPO or a commercial insurance may want another. Crossovers may also involve ICD ranges, where one range is acceptable by one payer in conjunction with a CPT or HCPC that is billed versus other payers that may want different diagnoses. Well, PrognoCIS accommodates this need by the crossover code feature, which is defined by AR group. You'll notice I've logged in here as our biller, Quinn Perkins. Once the crossover feature has been turned on within your database, which is a system-level property typically set during your initial implementation, any user with standard biller role permissions can both define crossover codes as well as use them at the claim level. So first of all, we're going to look at defining our AR insurance groups. All of these categories that we're going to look at, both at the CPT and HCPC level, as well as at the ICD level, is triggered by the AR group. The AR group is a category that is user-defined to allow you to categorize payers. This could be governmental, managed care, or it can be individualized, whatever is relevant for you within your practice. You'll notice here on my configuration menu in the upper left, I'm going to go into my group types master. And here along the right-hand margin for the non-system values, we're going to scroll down just a little bit until we get to our group type BD, which is insurance AR codes. And I'm just going to click on that BD hyperlink. And this gives me a list of my existing insurance codes. Now you'll notice I've already set up some general ones. So to create a new one, you simply click the Add New button, and you would define the code. Let's say we want one for all of our managed care contracts. And then you assign a unique code up to 10 digits to make it unique in your database and save it. Now that again is simply creating the AR group. Once your AR group is established, you can then link individual payers to a group by going into your insurance master. So if we go back here to our configuration menu and go under our vendors insurance, for ease and demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and open up my Cigna. Now notice I have 3 Cignas. In order to accommodate registration scenarios, if you have not made each Cigna succinct in its description, you will want to make sure that you assign the applicable AR insurance group to all of these. I'm just going to go ahead and choose this first one. I'm not going to go through all the fields in the insurance master since that's covered in a separate video, but if you notice here in my AR group, where it's defaulting to unknown, I'm just going to go ahead and choose PPO there, and I'm going to save it. And since I have a couple of other Cignas here, I'm going to go ahead and change all of them to PPO. Quickly here, just to show you the difference, if I open up my Medicare, you'll notice that my AR group is Medicare. And within this drop-down, I have all of those codes that are defined. So the first step, again, is to define your AR groups. Then, at an individual payer level, associate the AR group to the payer. Once that setup is done, based on your local crossover scenarios, the crossover tables are defined under the specific master files. Now for our training demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and open up the CPT table, and we're going to cross over a CPT code to a HCPC. The opposite is also true, however, and you can also build ICD cross-references to a CPT or a HCPC code. Now I'm just going to go ahead and open up my wellness exam CPT code. That's a pretty common one that some of our payers are dealing with. I'm going to open up the standard CPT code of 99396. Now this, of course, is a standard CPT code that a lot of payers accept for the wellness visit. Now down here at the bottom, if the property has been enabled at your system level to use crossovers, you'll notice these buttons down here have white labels. If the property is not set to yes, these buttons will be here, but they will be grayed out, such as you see this far right one. The button will not be enabled, meaning crossover function has not been turned on. So since my label is white, I'm going to just go ahead and click on my crossover CPT button. And then this opens up my table of all of those AR groups that we just looked at under our group types. That's why you need to set up your AR groups first. Now, by defining the CPT code that the AR group requires, all of the payers that you've individually associated the AR group to will accept that code. So based on the AR group, you can come into the binocular. We'll go ahead and use Medicare as the example. And the binocular search, whether you're in the HCPC master or the CPT master, the search does bring up both. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring up the G049, which is what Medicare requires for the annual wellness. So we're on the parent code, which is the 99396 that most insurances want. But in this case, our AR group, Medicare, which again would apply to every payer in our payer master to whom we assign that AR group, once the CPT code of 99396 shows up on the claim, if the insurance is Medicare, it is going to bill as G0439. It will go as 99396 for everyone else. You'll notice I also have the ability of adding modifiers. So if during the crossover, it is a modifier only, whether it is a different or same CPT code, you can also add the modifier so that it automatically crosses over. Now, while we're here on the CPT code, notice the second button down here, whose label is also enabled in white font, called CO message, which stands for crossover message. Now, these are diagnosis-related crossover scenarios to the same CPT code. I'm just going to go ahead and click that button. And now what the crossover message button opens is a table similar to what we just looked at with regards to CPT and HCPC crossovers. We notice that we still have an AR group designation. And if I click that down arrow, we see it's the same group types that we already discussed. But instead of CPT code, HCPC code, and modifiers, we have diagnosis ranges. So when we choose our binocular here based on the payer group, we can specify an individual ICD code or a range of diagnoses. Now, the example that I'm using here for training purposes may or may not be legitimate in your practice, but for simplicity purposes, since I've already got the annual exam CPT up, I'm just going to go ahead and demonstrate with this same example. I've gone ahead and used my Medicare and my PPO as examples. And let's say for Medicare, they just want V70.0. Annual wellness exam must be billed with CPT code G40439. We already built the crossover CPT code. That's not the point of this particular message. The primary difference here with your ICD crossover messages is this is going to be a pop-up that the user has to read and review and make a determination. Whereas on our CPTs and our HCPCs, the system will go ahead and change the code when the bill gets transmitted to the payer. Whether the biller manually does it or the system automatically does it, based on the property setting and local preference, the code gets changed. With regards to diagnoses, however, there is no provision to automatically change it. Diagnoses, of course, requires the doctor's signature and verification. However, in scenarios where the payer has specific requirements, such as a specific ICD range and combination for the CPT code, or maybe, as in the PPO example here, they are specifying a range as opposed to a specific code, and they're just indicating any valid V code would be relevant. It just gives the biller an opportunity to confer with the doctor or review the progress notes. So either way, whether we're talking about the crossover CPT or HCPC code or the crossover ICD message, we're going to take a look now at both examples at the claim level. So we're just going to go to our Claims tab, and we're going to select our Edit Claims option. And I've got both a Medicare and a Cigna claim here. So we're going to open up, first of all, our Cigna claim for Cookie Lion. And we'll notice down here at the charge code level, our crossover button has a white label. Now, the white label indicates that there is a crossover code present for one or more CPT code on the claim. So you can click the button and it will give you a table as to which codes have a crossover and what is going to cross over to. Now, again, this is based on that AR code. So for Cigna, in this case, we defined as an AR group PPO. We said that if it had a G0439, it needed to be billed as a 99396. So if I click OK, notice that down here in the charge row, my CPT code has now been overridden. Now that happened manually because the system property to automatically update it is shut off. If the property to automatically cross over is enabled, then it would have automatically shown here with the 99396, and you would not have had to manually click the button to do so. So that, of course, is a local decision if you want them to automatically cross over when you know that you've defined them appropriately, or if you want the biller to manually look at the biller and verify if they want it to go or not. Now, if we go back to our Medicare claim, this time we will see the diagnosis example. So I'm going to mark my claim ready to send. We're not going to worry about the crossover CPT or anything in this example, but rather we get a pop-up telling us that based on the presence of our CPT code, the routine screening diagnosis requires that it be changed to a G0439. So whether you want to base it on the diagnosis range and give the user a message that potentially the CPT code is wrong, or if you know the CPT code actually does need to be changed based on your contract, they can both be set up through the crossover feature at the CPT or HCPC master level. So in review of crossover CPT codes, they are specific to your AR group or payer requirement. So you want to begin by setting up your AR groups under the group type master, and then assign those groups to all applicable individual payers. Once you've done that setup, you can go into your CPT and HCPC masters and define the applicable codes based on the AR group. There are the CPT codes that can be crossed over to either other CPTs or HCPCs, and then you can also set up ICD ranges at a HCPC level or a CPT level that would then display as a pop-up for the biller on the claim detail page. Now, your crossover codes can either be manually assigned based on biller intervention, or they can automatically cross over based on how you set your property. And the ICD message will be a pop-up so that the user can decide what judgment to make. That also would be based on the way you define the properties at your system level. That concludes this video within the series. Please click the appropriate link below for your next step. If you'd like to take a quiz, you will receive your results in real time directly on the screen so that you can see how well you've done. If you answer incorrectly, the system will prompt you with the correct response. In addition, a confidential email will be sent to the education team to help us better serve you with our educational offerings. Second, advance to the next video within the series you're currently in. And finally, return to the video library main page. As always, feel free to contact us through the Resource Center or email with any additional questions or comments.